Hello everyone, welcome to another B2 Gaming video. Today is our third installment of our Red Dragon Wargame Speedrun, the Pearl of the Orient campaign. Let's listen in.
June 1982. The Falklands War, Margaret Thatcher's war, ends in a complete British victory. The Iron Lady is at the top of her popularity and influence. September 1982. While on an official visit to Beijing, the British Prime Minister expresses Britain's wish to see China extending the lease of Hong Kong. Deng Xiaoping counters this by putting forward China's will to recover all of its territories that are still under foreign administration. 1983. For a year, negotiations are pursued with no positive results. When they reach a deadlock, the Chinese premier bluntly states that he could walk in and take the whole lot this afternoon. Encouraged by her aura as a victorious war leader in the Falklands, the British Prime Minister takes up the gauntlet and orders the reinforcement of Hong Kong's garrison. In retaliation, China masses troops on Hong Kong's border, hoping to force her to reconsider Britain's position. 6 months later, the Iron Lady hasn't yielded an inch, and even convinces several Commonwealth states to stand alongside Britain. April 19th, 1984. When it was unable to recover through diplomacy, China decides to recover by force. On April 19th, 1984, at 1 minute past midnight, China recalls its ambassador to Great Britain after transmitting a last declaration of war.
General, the Chinese preparations to invade are more advanced than initially thought. Our intelligence estimates that their troops will cross the border at dawn. Our task force is en route, but it will only reach the China Sea in about 10 days. You must absolutely keep Hong Kong out of reach of Chinese troops until reinforcements arrive. The Prime Minister can then start diplomatic negotiations. Needless to say, these will be greatly influenced by the outcome of the fighting. Our armored units deployed to the Tsuan Wan Plateau are ready to move and to engage the enemy, sir. The plateau is a critical logistic platform. We would not survive if we lost it. The RAF and Australian planes are also on full alert. They are being deployed to Lantau and Kowloon airports. Our Commonwealth allies are urgently sending us reinforcements. The Canadians should arrive tomorrow by plane. With their help, we must hold Hong Kong for as long as possible. Okay, that's the end of the briefing, and we can start to guide our forces to victory. We're going to call in a navy from the right. So this existing navy that we start with is going to head to the left to protect us against a marine landing that could potentially come in on the left. You'll see that from Naval Sector Gulf, they could theoretically attack it. I'd like to get to Echo in case there's a helicopter moving into that Echo province where it could attack two of my provinces. I thought about defending the marine landing, but my own forces can defend the marine landing. I'm more worried about the helicopters than the Marines at this point. My strategy is to centralize two attack forces, withstand their, not just withstand, but annihilate their attacking force, and then counterattack with almost everything the British have to completely wipe out this advanced Chinese force on day 4. We'll see if I can pull it off. With this mission, it's a survival mission, so you will hold, like it says there, until turn 9, and then if you still control all of your objectives, you'll get a total victory. You can see that there's 3 secondary objectives if you hold them all, and Hong Kong, because you'll lose if you lose Hong Kong, but if you hold them all 4, you'll get that awesome victory. One nice thing is that this UK force has a lot more helicopters to start with than we've had in the first 2 campaigns that we tried to beat. If you watch those campaigns, you know that one of the quirks of this game is that you can't retreat into a contested province unless you're a helicopter. A helicopter can move into water, a helicopter can move through a contested province. I mean, after all, what's going to stop them? So I take advantage of this. I have a attacking helicopter force, and I have this RAF logistics supply helicopter force. By using both of them, I think I've got a third one as well, but yeah, by using the 3 helicopter forces, I can make sure to get behind the enemy lines and essentially encircle them before I counterattack and get my total victory, so that even surviving units will be destroyed because they have no legal province to retreat to. In this game's campaigns, your surviving forces will retreat even from a total defeat, but they have to have that blue arrow there available to them. They have to have a safe province to retreat to. And you can take that away from them. You can turn it white when the province is contested. And if they have no, in their case, the AI is red, so if they have no red arrows leading away from their contested province, they'll be destroyed if they're forced to retreat. Essentially, they're encircled and captured. So knowing this from my previous attempts to beat all the campaigns in short order, I'm deciding whether the Marines will go into the water and fight on the sea, or go to Suan Wan and back up the other forces. Nice thing about this commando regiment is it's 2 FOBs and elite troops. Because it's a Marine regiment, it's also got some ships. You can see quite a lot of command ships there. Not very great ones, though. The best on the NATO side are things like the Oliver Howard Perry, the Congo, and then the Japanese Hayatsuki. I'm probably misremembering the name, but yep, the 250-point Japanese one is another great command ship for the NATO forces. So I decided to leave the cupboard bare in Saikang in all of the naval secondary objective provinces, Lantau Island as well. Move all the forces frontward so that they can all be on the same page in the counterattack. Unfortunately, the tanks, as you may know, only have 2 initiative, which means they'll only be useful on this first turn defensive battle. Enemy forces estimated at 2 armored battalions, as well as a squadron of attack helicopters, likely enemy aerial cover. Canada is sending several airborne detachments they can deploy from Kowloon and Lantau airports. The government has just authorized us to use the aircraft carrier HMS Illustrious. That's the force that's going to come in on the right and prevent any Marine landing on the right. You can already see the Marines mounted up and ready to attack in the red naval sector on the right. In the meantime, I've secured Echo, and my left navy is about to protect it. Time to bring in the Illustrious officially and have it guard Sai Kung. You can see by the white arrows where naval landings are possible. Considered trying to get my Marine to make a naval landing against that port province up north. I decided to keep him on the ground. In this case, the enemy didn't have a command chopper, and I was able to straight up control the province with my helicopter rather than having to worry about being attacked next turn. As you can see, there's now no red arrows leading out of the new territories. Because of the situation, my Gurkhas are actually able to take both of those provinces. My enemies all attack. No rear echelon to defend those attackers from being encircled. It was your first mistake, assuming that I would stay defensive, my Chinese friends. And for these forces, it'll be their last mistake. Except for the planes, none of these Chinese units can now move away, assuming that I get these total victories. And you might be better than me, but I had great difficulty getting the total victories. So if you know what you're doing, you might find it a little easier, but I had to reload several times on each of these first two. This being the YouTube video, you only see the final attempt. In this case, the video was over an hour longer before I cut out all that chaff. Here is one of the few four sector battles. Sorry for these Twitch comments that ended up getting saved in. My first viewers made the comments and I didn't quite understand that they would stick around in the video because of my setup, but I've since fixed the setup, and after this series this will no longer happen. There's so many forces that I take a lot of damage and expend a lot of ammunition, so I decided to solve that problem with a fob. Something new that I'm trying in this playthrough that I hadn't tried yet. There's also so many enemies that even when you're attacking them, they're counterattacking across this bridge. So if you have nothing here, they'll survive just by establishing a command post in this southern sector. And even if you wipe them out in the north, they'll be bringing in reinforcements from the south. So you have to create a perimeter around these three potential bridges, two to the south, one here on the east that they could use. I choose the vehicles because in forest they get a fairly good stealth bonus. And given that there are choppers, I have to put some kind of AA present. But my strategy, given the number of the enemy forces, has always been to attack quickly and try to deny them the ability to bring in all of their reserves. On these first attacks, the AI has a lot of units. They all have reasonable morale and high cohesion, so they're bringing in their forces very, very quickly. I almost always start it very slow so that I can get my men unloaded without too much time going by, and then get the attack organized and moving. I'll pretty quickly go back to normal speed. Although in these crucial early battles where you need the total victory, sometimes you do have to stay slow to micromanage your troops. My Twitch viewer had felt that I should hold position here, but like I said, they can bring in so many more forces than you. If your challengers are well positioned, you can withstand, but you'll usually take more losses than are necessary for a total victory. And since a total victory is what we're after here, that is the plan. Once this command tank makes it into the sector, everything's gravy, but unfortunately it has to go through an open area, and more unfortunately, that guy went 2 for 2 at the free throw line. That hot helicopter with its anti-tank missiles. I probably should have held that command unit back a little longer. So plan B is the command unit that's holding that sector goes forward while the other command unit stays back. This is me trying to get a tricky win here. It's a win that I haven't gotten this whole series. It's the win where you control all 4 command sectors. It's an instant win, no matter how many armies your opponent has. Consider it like the StarCraft equivalent of killing all their buildings when they're 200 supply armies, you know, at your doorstep ready to kill your last Marine. They have tanks, helicopters, and AA in this, so the real completeness of their force makes this potentially the most difficult battle that we've played in the series yet. You can see those PGZs are guarding their helicopters, so if I move AA, or airborne chopper forces to fight them, they're going down. Where I've positioned my choppers right now is about the edge that I can have them safely, and really right there they can't contribute. They're just as a reaction force in case I get pressed. But like I said, they like to counterattack across the bridge, and there they go with over a dozen tanks as well as a helicopter. In this case, the helicopter's operating by themselves, and my chopper can move in and take them out. But they actually find my command unit, and I'm fairly lucky that I've got an infantry command unit, as they sent an anti-tank chopper to scout. So here I go, about ready to neutralize the province. You see it goes white, but then they abandon it for some reason. They may feel that I'm right around the corner, so I can bring in forces here now that I control it. I didn't kill their command unit. Their command unit decided to move, perhaps to evacuate to a new sector, perhaps not. But I realized my other command unit's here. I can unload the new territories. And there it is. That's how it happens. Control all 4 sectors for even a moment. Your opponent retreats, but here they have nowhere to retreat to. And that's all she wrote for their right flank attack as it explodes. Some of their planes may make it back home, but none of their men will. None of their ground forces, that is. Here you can see that I was unable to complete the encirclement. If I had maneuvered my helicopters a little differently, I would have been able, I think, to get that and push them into a sector where they could not actually bring in reinforcements like Bravo or planes. But I've already made the mistake, and I decided to try to play it out. definitely probably cost me a few losses because I don't remember losing too much on this map before. But given that they have no retreat options, even if I don't have them boxed in to a central sector where they can't bring in reinforcements, I can still surround them and do enough damage and get the total victory in some kind of way, either by taking very few losses, that's less than 30% of these total command point losses you're allotted here on the right bars. Then there's also what you just saw, conquering all of the command points. This requires you to keep enough of your command vehicles and commander infantry alive to take that many points, and sometimes you don't even start with 4 of these command units that can capture these sectors. After some unsuccessful tries with tanks on the left, I decided that infantry can hold these forests on the left while the tanks come from the right, which, even though it's further away, has a bit more open area, which favors tanks pretty nicely. Along with the tanks, which are fairly mediums, I have some 1 recon and then some wheeled cannons. A bit faster than tanks, a lot less armored. Decent cannons, not nearly as good as tank cannons. I've left the center bare, and so there's not much that I can do to try to stop this ZZZ command unit that's moving towards the center sector, the one that says Suinwan. Apologies for butchering some of these names of places and people. I luck out and grab a command unit there. If you saw that 120 point loss in the top right center. However, the enemy has some fairly nice tanks, and tank on tank can be very messy. Heavy losses on both sides. Here I'm pretty lucky. If you can attack from a wide arc, you'll get some more side armor hits, which are a lot more likely to get that kill. Trying to press in and get that command unit I just spotted, but they have enough tanks that my attack move is pausing to fire at and hopefully destroy these tanks. But my wombats, like I said, have no armor, so they definitely lose to tanks. At that point, I didn't have time to pull them back, really. Realistically, the big issue here is the curve of this mountain. They're coming around the road, and then the curve of the mountain, and being spotted by me, and in often cases killed before they can really form a battle line. So this choice of attacking from the right finally gets me the win on this map. As you can see by their command point bar, it has dropped much, much faster. But if I only get a major victory, it might not be good enough. I might still have to replay this map yet again. So I'm trying to be very careful, avoid any last-second losses. Sometimes quite a lot of losses can come in the last few minutes. There they keep driving into an area where I can hit them all. I get that total victory, and with nowhere to run, any forces that hadn't been outright destroyed by their losses are forced to surrender with nowhere to run to. Since that happened during my turn, I am not able to move. I used all my initiative here on turn 1 in the ground battles, and can only really call in reinforcements and move my naval forces now. However, considering I lost no battle groups, and they lost 3 on the right, 3 on the left, so far, their invasion is not going well. I've given my Gurkhas, which are that helicopter unit to the north, 3 air units to support it, because I assume that they'll be attacked. But they are actually pretty elite. You may have heard of them, pretty elite forces, and they'll be able to hold by themselves at least for 1 turn. One of the nice things about infantry in this game is that they can almost always hold a sector by themselves for at least 1 turn. So they garrison a town, force the enemy to take enough losses, and even if at that point they're wiped out, it's not a total victory. Major and minor victories and defeats, along with draws, leave the battle zone, that province, as contested, and the battle will continue until someone destroys the enemy, forces a retreat, gets a total victory. When I first played these campaigns, I very rarely got total victories. It was things like major victories, which I thought were awesome. I was doing great. Now I realize that with a bit of tactical encirclement, you can wipe your enemy right off the map in this game. They did move to contest the province, but they did not attack me. So on turn 2, I'm able to move forward and reinforce the Gurkhas. You see I moved the supply helicopter. The supply helicopter can't fight, so if it's caught there next turn without a retreat option, it will be destroyed. But since it has no combat power, this is the way for me to cut off the enemy's retreat while also eliminating their combat power. Trying to decide if I should go for that same encirclement again or keep the helicopter in battle. There's no reason to build any ground forces as they can't catch up when you're attacking this quickly. So I spend my these are political points to bring in reinforcements on planes so that I can reinforce the front with them or defend this fleet, which is about to face a tough battle. One of the tougher that remain now that I've taken out those first 2 fights, which in this campaign are quite frankly meant to last 2 or 3 turns before you can drive them back, or if you're not very good, they'll actually drive you back to the Sunwan Plateau. See that they do have a Marine Brigade on the left, but that my Navy's already in position to intercept it. There's no landing zones that it can make before the Navy occupies the same province as it does. Or the same sector. We've pretty much brought in all the useful planes, so we're looking for something else that we might bring in. This anti-tank battalion is quite nice in that it's a specialist battalion, but it does have a command unit, and so can defend a sector. Just like the last campaign, but unlike the first, I hadn't run a playtest. I was just going off the memory of a couple years back when I first did this. So I'm trying to remember if I need defenses or if I should send these forces forward in case my offensives are bogged down and they can actually reach them. But given my spawn points, assuming I keep getting total victories, my attacking forces will outrun any reinforcements that I send on this turn. given that they do have helicopters that could fly all the way across that bay in one turn. I get the anti-tank battalion that has the ADATs, which actually also target helicopters. Figuring that's a pretty clever move in case those do come across the water and attack. Here's an interesting battle where I kind of feel I don't have the naval strength to fight them ship to ship, although with the Olivers in front and some Pegasus and supply ships in back, I would have a chance of winning an anti-ship missile exchange. I feel like I've got good enough anti-ship planes, though, that I can just continually send wave after wave and get enough of the Ludas to wipe them out. At the very least, lower their combat power to the point that then my ships can take them out. As you can see, it takes about 3, sometimes 2 can do it, but even 3 will sometimes not do it, so you want 3 or 4 planes to be assured of a Luda destruction, and that's assuming it doesn't have a good screen around it like those 2 did not. With a good screen, you can need more like 6 or 7 anti-ship planes, although certain planes will launch 4 missiles, and with one of those leading, that lowers the number of planes you need. Also capable of hitting ships are your seed planes, as these ships possess radar. Anti-tank planes as well can hit ships, but their ranges are always such that they're going to enter the ship's AA radius and usually take a lot heavier losses than the ship specialized or seed type, which will usually have the 3 or 4 kilometer range. Yeah, this game lists things in meters, so when it gets to 1,000, that's a kilometer. For those of you like me who are in America, sometimes it's easy to forget that kilometer is a good deal shorter than a mile. Almost half. As you can see there, 2 planes don't quite hack it. I was hoping for a little luck. So in the end, it takes 4 planes to take out that Luda. And since the enemy has, I believe, 8 that I have to kill, I have to retreat my ships and sort of scatter to avoid being overwhelmed by the number of ships they have. You can see it's a very large force. Like most of these naval battles I've faced so far, there's kind of a swarm heading at me that I've got to defeat in some kind of way. But most of those small ships are probably muskets. Best defense against a musket, assuming that you can't keep them far enough away they can't shoot at you, is to trick them all into firing at one target, because their 4 at a time shot is incredibly hard to shoot them all down. So if you can get them to fire 20 or 30 at one target, well, the target was probably going to die with 4, 8, and certainly 12 missiles. Every missile more than 12 you can get shot at you is an overkill that protects your other ships. So I'll be trying to use the Type 21 here as a decoy. If I do take shots, I want them to be at this Type 21, and then the Olivers will emerge and hopefully destroy the muskets that haven't shot. As you can see that I'm heavily, heavily outnumbered by ships. I'm just continually bringing in anti-ship rockets, hoping that I'll be able to defeat the enemy. So a second ago, there's about 4 Ludas total. You can kind of see the difference in the ship profiles between the small ships and the big ships. Big ships having those separate tower on the front and back, or small ships only having one elevated bridge. Some small ships can't be targeted by anti-ship missiles, but the Pegasus can, so the Pegasus and the Type 21, the two Type 21s are the sacrificial ships that are going to eat any musket fire that gets too close. And here comes the first volley. As you can see, a huge overkill. One of the first 4 missiles killed that Pegasus, and then about a dozen went off course with nothing to target. Luckily for me, those missiles can't retarget on the fly. Unluckily for me, I get hit without my CIWS being able to do too much. The Nanuskas, which is probably what those are very, very accurate. They're 120 points, which is actually more points than that Type 100, or the Type, which, yeah, the Type 21. So that means points usually determine who will come out on top, although sometimes the weapon systems are not matched right for that. Given that they've depleted their ammo, I'm moving forward with my entire navy here, hoping to be able to take out the muskets and some other ships before they can be reloaded by a Muna type transport. When you're being attacked by a large number of anti-ship missiles, you really need at least 3 command ships in a good formation using their CIWS to intercept those ship missiles in concert. You can see that my missile shots are being overwhelmed by their interception, and then some of their muskets get shot. Combined with the other ships shooting as well, they overwhelm one of my Olivers, and now I'm looking at a potential loss if my command ships can be isolated and destroyed. Doesn't matter, I've got a ton of planes. If they get all of my command ships, the battle is lost. At this point, I assume that they are going to get them. I'm just hoping for a miracle where I can get my planes in. They're so close to my air zone that I'm firing as soon as I come in. So I decided that it'll be impossible to really organize a good attack run and just send my guys in one at a time. Muskets aren't great targets, but at the same time, if they get reloaded, they'll really start pummeling me down. So they're better than nothing. You can see that it's sending them in one at a time. It's very hard to get those hits. And those 2 ships to the front are Shantus. They're very light destroyers, or they'd have been targeted. See, I now get the identification on them. But if you fly over something with an anti-ship missile and it isn't targeted, it means it's of a very light ship, kind of a light cruiser. Muskets are a heavy enough cruiser that they can be targeted. I get wiped out in the south, but this eastern force survives. At this point, I've taken some heavy losses and probably can't get a total victory without destroying all their command units. However, in these campaigns, I don't consider myself required to always get a total victory. Just always getting a total victory on advancing towards the objectives so that I get the fastest possible wins. I get another sortie of planes fueled up and ready to go. And they end up clearing me away to get out to the north without firing my missiles. You can actually turn off your weapons, but that micro can be a little hard and it can cause you to fly right over something that is capable of killing you. I got a Luda to the south and I've identified 2 more. So I'm doing everything I can to destroy those units because not only are they what I need to kill, but they're also extremely powerful and about ready to kill my forces. They're in position of firing at them. My Olivers only have 15 more points of value than a Luda, so therefore they're very evenly matched in a slugfest. I can't let them fight alone. At this point I realize that I'm probably not going to get the total victory because there's 2 command units at least, and killing one of them will cause the battle to end, as it'll deplete their command points on the right. They have less than 100. I go there very fast because I knew I had the victory there. And you see the anti-ship missiles from the Pegasus, very accurate. Take out that Luda. It's a major victory only. But like I said, I'm not requiring total victory on this front. This is a holding action to prevent their navy from landing. So as long as I survive, I'm doing fine there. However, my goal is to wipe the map on turn 4. You'll see here I've isolated this peninsula. They can't bring in reinforcements. Whatever they start with, assuming they can't capture my peripheral sector here, they will be stuck with. And especially because of the command unit vulnerability, I'll be hunting for the command units that they start with, while also creating a force that can protect my sector from capture, along with having 2 command units, so if they do look out and grab one, it's not a total victory for them. So the infantry will protect while the choppers that I have go around and do what they can to find and attack the enemy. They'll pretty much be forced to move towards Delta and the 2 Yantian sector in the hopes of capturing it and getting some reinforcements brought in. Especially with helicopter forces, it's advantageous to start very slow on these campaign missions, get them well positioned, and make sure they're all unloaded. And then you usually want to split the helicopters into single units rather than 2 helicopter squads, because certain AoE weapons will destroy both helicopters when they hit one of them in formation. Before I'm able to get my helicopters moving, I see their first attack column moving in, but their armored personnel carriers aren't very good. You can see by the pictures they have no weapons on top, so these are cheap 5-10 point, 10 point we see, yep, cheap 10 point, which means they'll have some armor and some speed, but they clearly have no weapons. Actually, I'm proven wrong. They are firing, so they have a machine gun. It's not shown on the picture, but this type does have a machine gun. But you can just tell by that picture that it is not an infantry fighting vehicle. It's not going to be that strong of an opponent. The rockets on these AH-7s are devastating to light APCs and infantry. One of the best properties of them, if you're the one using them, is that they'll stun the units. So if you're attacking a lead unit, often the other units will just keep running into that part of the road and then themselves get stunned, letting you pound all of them. And that's what happened. I destroyed all of the vehicles just about, and now there's the remnants of the infantry that those vehicles were carrying scattered about on the road, seeking cover, but not going to find enough of it. I even take my SAS out of the building to move them up on the line, along with some Gurkhas there to the north. I'm checking the mini-map and I see that there's no other attacks, but also that I don't have any kind of line protecting my HQ section, and so that once this battle is over, I'm going to have to redeploy some of these helicopters as a screen. However, the enemy's also very low, so if I can find a command unit or two, I can probably just win the battle with a total victory outright by killing it. Their last APCs here are found by my infantry. And like I said, they have no open roads. All of their provinces, there's only one in this whole map. They can bring in reinforcements, and I've got it. Infantry have pretty short range, but they have a very powerful attack. Unless they're rookie conscript type infantry, you don't want to get in close with infantry. Or you don't want to get in close to the enemy infantry, is what I mean to say. Might have been a little unclear. From where they're fighting here, surrounded by buildings, my helicopters have a hard time getting them here. But as you can see by the command points, the battle's about over. So I decided to hold this position and just do what I can. I luck out and I catch these infantry without firing. They might have been able to take out all the choppers in the area if they had mounted into a building, dismounted from their vehicle into a building.
It always comes down to the infantryman and his blade. If the enemy's in range, so are we. What can infantry do for you, sir?
In the first campaign, the enemy started superior, but then you got the superior U.S. reinforcements to push them back. The second campaign, you started inferior to begin with and just had numbers, eventually getting the elite North Koreans to land in Vladivostok to help get the victory. In this one, you start out with better forces the whole time, but you're just constantly outnumbered, or at least you should be. However, at this point, the numbers are kind of even since I wiped the enemy out, pushed them back. There in Shenzhen, there was a company with no command unit, so they're forced to retreat. This elite regiment was encircled by the chopper moving past them. And if that seems a little unrealistic, just, pretend those are some special forces. They've mined the road. These poor guys are now surrounded in Charlie sector. Their only way out having been mined. And now we've surrounded them as well. So, superior strategy means that I don't require such superior tactics. Thank you, Sun Tzu. Given the positioning of the sector, it's actually kind of hard to encircle. I'm right up next to it in a lot of places, but they're going to have a strong force. So anything I position right next to that sector is probably going to get destroyed pretty quickly. So trying to put a naval unit in a ground sector doesn't usually work, so I'm going to switch that around. But I'm trying to have a kind of even force in all directions that can prevent them from capturing a command center, while at the same time identifying and killing their command units, so it's recon heavy. Recon units and command units both get a very large stealth bonus. I'm not sure how else you might get it. Maybe if you're more veteran, you're a little more stealthy. Other than that, I don't know if there's any other way to increase your stealth, but a unit's stealth is listed as one of its attributes. So how big it is and how stealthy it is are what affect how it gets spotted, as well as whether or not a recon is in the area to help spot it. So having a battle group without recon is very dangerous, very easy to get ambushed. You can see from our recon they kind of divvied into two battle groups, a northern one and a southern one. Given that I positioned my forces at pretty long range, I'm not attacking yet. Because of that bridge, my big ships can't really get close enough to Charlie, but they can protect Alpha. This is a 100-point helicopter. It represents a big investment, almost a tenth of my initial investment. You start out with at least 1,000 points. Some forces don't even have that many command points within their total battle group. They move into RPG range of that infantry, and they start taking losses, but they've got enough ZBDs in the back to hurt me very badly. If you've watched the other series, you remember the ZBD is essentially a mini tank. It moves quite quickly. It's in many ways better than earlier light tanks at the role of a light tank. At least it certainly seems that way to me. It won me one of my missions by itself in the Bear vs. Dragon campaign. However, probably because of the elevation or some sight blockers, they kept driving into that infantry to the point where they finally overwhelmed it with numbers of the men dismounting. However, if I can keep whittling them down and kill any command unit that enters these other sectors, I'll eventually get the win, even though they're getting pretty good hits on me to the north. Since I need points, I send one of the Fremantles back. Get me the naval sector, increase my point total, help me bring in some more forces. Also supplies for the choppers. As you can see, a lot of my choppers are out of their missiles, the tow missiles.
Fly zone is hot.
So even though I started with them boxed in, I kind of grabbed a tiger by its tail. Here I kind of luck out. I may have killed one of their other command units earlier and not noticed, but one of their vehicles, 5-point vehicle, was carrying a 100-point command unit. I managed to nab it there with the Centurion Avra. And the North District is conquered. The new territories, or rather the, sorry I misread, above the North District, that sector is conquered. You think the enemy is preparing for a double landing on our coast? Likely destination, Lantau and Saikun. Not a surprise since I've played this campaign before, but a good reason why, if you didn't know, you should position a navy on each side to prevent these kind of marine and helicopter landings. You see the Marines actually have a pretty potent naval force, the Ludas and the Muskets. It's not going to be easy. Pegasus have that distinctive back end. In my mind, they're one of the best ships on the NATO size in terms of how much damage they can do for the cost.
I'll be there soon. The only good enemy is a dead enemy. On our way, sir.
Here comes that first musket volley. Fortunately, they targeted the cruisers that don't have anti-ship missiles. So my firepower is undiminished. And the second musket volley comes in, and half of my Pegasuses are annihilated. But that's probably all the ammo all the muskets having fired by now. So I decided that since I brought in a supply ship and my Pegasuses will continue firing their missiles, I might just be able to take this battle. You can see that these Type 21s don't have great CIWS. A lot of these rockets are just plain missing my ships, not actually getting shot out of the sky. One of the weaknesses of this enemy fleet is that the Ludas, none of their escort ships have the anti-ship missiles aboard, or rather the way of destroying them, the CIWS. What is that? Interception Weapon System? Not sure what that stands for. Decide that it's time to press the attack, so I pull out the command unit that's keeping the command sector captured and my points flowing so that it can join the front line, bring its firepower to bear, hopefully finish off these Ludas and get the win. Though in many cases the total victory is not important for the naval battle. In this case, this Navy has to both defeat these Marines and then turn around and defeat the helicopters to prevent their landing. Not entirely necessary since I have defenders, but I definitely don't want them to land since the defenders are so outnumbered. It's a very small unit that I brought in. Yep, that helicopter unit will be shredded by Navy, whereas it will have the advantage even against the ADATS wielding force because it has no infantry. Managed, just barely, I think, to keep my losses under 30%, which means I did get the total victory there. Here, this was just the mining battalion, the special forces, cutting them off. I might auto-resolve this because I'm not great at naval battles, and like I said, this is not a crucial axis, although if I were to lose and they land and take my sector, it would mess up my challenge. Since there's no way to end this campaign early, for me, my win condition is wiping the enemy from the map. Then we'll end the turns to get to 9 and get the victory. But this is a speed challenge, so I want to give my troops about 6 days off after the war to rest and recover, because they fought so hard. You've seen this tactic before. Just a repeat from the last battle. Send waves of 3 tornadoes. I see that in this case the enemy might have even more ships than last time. They're using basically the exact same tactic on basically the exact same map. Knowing what to expect, I'm switching into very fast, something I don't normally do, because you can get ambushed and take losses too quickly. But Navy can be a bit slow. These naval battles can go very slowly if you don't have that. So after seeing what happened to me last time, I don't want all of my command ships to be caught in one area and cornered the way they were. So I've got one sailing around the south, while one is calling in the planes at regular intervals. I get that Luda there. And my goal is to kill all the command units. See that 21 barely survived. The Ludas, ship missiles. Spot 2 Ludas to the center, and there's an implied one in that top left one since it's taken. In fact, it's guaranteed to be one since the Luda is their only command vessel. Any taken province or any taken sector on this map will contain at least 1 Luda. You can see that they've taken the top 2 and are about to take the bottom right. The size of that ship we spotted could have only been a Luda. Now it's been identified as such. Yeah, but I have to play a very slippery game. So many muskets prowling around the center. If I get caught in range, that's it for me. Gotta sneak around the map and keep calling in airstrikes to knock out their Ludas. I have the potential to wipe them out this time. I knocked out several last time. They'd have already been out if they hadn't gained Ludas with the arrival of the Marines, which also had Ludas and muskets, which is why this Navy is so beefy the second time around, despite all the losses they took the first time around. The first time we see one of their fighters coming in, they have an anti-ship fighter. I went to slow motion, try to take out the fighter, but my nearby fighters were already evacing. The ones further out didn't have time to move in. Finally capture that province, which gives me the ability to bring in reinforcements. Actually have a naval force to go with my air force. Given that I saw their fleet moving to the bottom right, I know that I can attack the top without any more than a couple of command ships and their air support as defenses there, so that's what I'm moving to do. Take out any ships on the top, and then circle back around, kill the Luda on the bottom. Turns out we've got 3 Ludas in the center. I begin targeting because there's a chance that a ship can pop up, and without the targeting you'll retarget. Appeared the enemy was very concentrated there, and a miss might have actually hit a musket and caused a chain reaction kill. You have to be very careful with Navy when you're sailing around islands. They will kind of derp and run into each other. You want to keep the big ships in formation and move the small ships individually, I've found, is the best way to keep things from getting cluttered up on the high seas. You'd think there'd be enough room to maneuver, but sometimes there isn't. Decided to make a line and make a stand. You can't run forever. Whoever's in the center will always have a shorter path to you. So it's kind of impressive that I was able to evade their ships for this long. Decide that with the Pegasus and the Parries working together, might just be able to put out enough ship missiles to do the damage. First time you've seen me bring in an anti-ship helicopter, but they arrive more quickly than ships, so I choose them here. They don't have a lot of missiles, and they're not very survivable. It's easy to lose track of them and have them wander in AA range is why. But when you're needing more ship missiles instantly, that's who you bring in, and I'm waiting for a second to bring in the planes. I want to clear out as many ships as I can with the ships so that I can concentrate my fire with my planes on the Ludas, and hopefully they'll have as little as possible cover, as little as possible air defense. That Fabad does a lot of work, comes in, damages one, and kills another of my fighters. So if you're looking for a good fighter, in your deck. That one can kill both ships and planes. Not too shabby.
I'll set up a new command
Turns
post
out that I bit off a bit more than I could chew in this fight.
I'll set up a new command post
I
there.
have to retreat lest I lose my last command ships.
The captain and his crew welcome you aboard. Let's fly. I'll be there soon.
I don't need to wipe the enemy out here, but not too many more ship kills will do it. The nearly dead Type 91 actually gets a loot a kill there, so talk about punching above your weight. I think the Type 21 cost 100 points, maybe 120. And the loot is 150. Decide to hit the Luda that must be in naval sector up there to the north, 2 naval sector. Tornado missile gets that kill, bringing me to under 300 left to go, which is potentially 2 muskets. Here I see a chance to avenge myself on this Fabad. But to find out how expensive a plane this is, I think. Yeah, he didn't evac in time. 150. It's a costly plane. Yeah, you better be good at that price. So instead of 2 Ludas, the Fabad and the Luda are taken out, actually giving me a total victory on my second attempt. Quite nice. Chasing him down with my carrier eliminates the Marines who survived, leaving just planes. This enemy counterattack slowed me down. I wanted to get the win here on turn 3 and be really impressive, but they countered me. Potentially a bit of a redeployment might have gotten the turn 3 win, with the Gurkhas holding on to holding their counterattack from attacking. I could actually move the forces this turn. Instead, I've got to clear their counterattack this turn. So potentially a 3rd turn win available, but here in this particular playthrough it's going to be at least 4 because of that counterattack you're seeing come in. I can't get to the rear line, I can't take the airfield. You can see past me coming to terms with this, trying to see if there's any way that my helicopters can go over and win the day. And while I might be able to capture that airfield with the Gurkhas with some insane micro and tactics, it's not worth it, because there'd be that other sector that I can't attack, because though I have choppers that could arrive there, I only have 1 chopper unit with a command chopper, which means only 1 sector that I can attack other than these 2 sectors that are already contested. So this may be a bit sad, getting pushed off the turn 3 win, but given that you're given till turn 9, a turn 4 or 5 win would still be pretty good. So I do move the Gurkhas there, but it's more for the encirclement than it is to attack. I don't believe that I do. Here the light tanks won't help, as only a 2 initiative unit, but the logistics will make it and be of assistance. I was able to keep my forces moving, though. Those 2 units would have never been able to catch up to the advance. Yep, I do this turn what I maybe should have done last turn. Move the Gurkhas there. They're not going to attack, but they are ready to defend, prevent the enemy from sending another wave and delaying my advance. Yep, the last time it was an elite unit. We were grabbing by the tail. We'll see if this unit is also a challenge to take out. In this case, however, you're seeing that I have more choices. The tank unit, the 2 initiative tank unit that was unavailable before, can now contribute its challengers, its 100-point tanks to this fight, which will make it a very bad day for my opponent. Given the expense of this unit, I bring in the Fusiliers, the affordable infantry, so as not to overload the command points in that area and still have enough, as well as have a buffer. An 100-point tank is excellent, but it can be overwhelmed. Having a 4-squad infantry as a buffer in front of your awesome tank makes the two together much, much more survivable than either would be separately. So, yeah. Trying to move fast after I've spent a long time, much longer on this campaign in the Twitch recording than the other 2 campaigns yet, though it makes sense that each campaign gets harder and takes longer. Still, I'm rushing a bit at this stage of the playthrough, and here I realize that everything I brought in doesn't exactly deal with helicopters, so that's not great. The scimitars, however, are the exception. These recons have a cannon that is fairly powerful, and so these 2 command choppers kind of instantly fly to their death, even though I'm not doing excellently at taking out their main force of choppers, given I don't have many AA weapons. These long-range cannons on my scouts are having a chance of just early winning by taking out all of their command choppers, of which I've identified 3 so far. The good thing is that although choppers have high damage output, they usually run out of ammo pretty quickly. And I caught it. He had to land, and there's nowhere to run to. Yeah, this airborne regiment was pretty good, but they let themselves get encircled and suffered the same fate as the last non-helicopter elite regiment to enter. But yet those are the forces that were supposed to gradually join the attack the Chinese were sending and make it more and more irresistible, even if you were dealing damage to it. But when you wipe out the first wave, the next waves aren't so terrible. Seems like some of these provinces make it all but impossible to encircle them. Some of them may not have a central province, so they're forced to end up with a province that can bring in reinforcements. Here there's a very narrow line between their only sector and my nearest sector, so I decided to attack with everything I've got since this is a much smaller and less elite force than the last one. My first volley takes out quite a lot. I also noticed I had a pretty good range advantage over my opponent. His convoy moving through the trees kind of catches me. And instead of a walkover, we've got a fight. My strikers in particular are not very armored compared to my other units that are attacking. As you can see, they started with so few command points that after less than a minute of fighting, they're already near 100 away from losing. Luckily, my strikers don't get wiped out instantly. Their APCs don't have cannons, but rather machine guns, and so the armor is sufficient to protect the strikers from most of the units it's facing. Only those anti-tank units and the infantry, once they dismount, are real threats to what I brought in. And so I luck out, taking out tons of infantry and APCs before I'm even really heavily engaged by something that can hurt me. One of the easier total victories we've seen in any of the campaigns on that one, but it was just a transit sector for the Chinese. It wasn't their airfield, nor was it their launching off sector for the flanking attack that Badan or Baoan, can't read if it's a D or an O. For some reason, it's a lot fuzzier on Twitch until I can get it reformatted for YouTube. So we see here we'll be facing quite a force once we do fight that. Such a heavy force, I decided I better save. That was pretty mean. Their helicopter just moved right by me instead of stopping to fight. Actually have to keep the Navy positioned in that province to intercept them, since Navies often only have 2 initiative. My unit wasn't able to move and then attack that chopper, unfortunately, because it would have wiped the floor with it. Luckily for me, while the infantry is few in number, there is some infantry here. I believe I brought in reinforcements because the anti-tank battalion didn't have infantry, but it did have the ADATs, which are one of my favorite weapons in this whole game. Can attack tanks or helicopters with their missiles. Pretty neat. Imagine any missile that can destroy a tank will just blow a helicopter to pieces. The way, you know, the way Tom of Tom and Jerry used to love Mises to pieces. Was that Tom? Who knows? The enemy is encircled, but I don't have the best weapons against choppers. Almost looks like I didn't realize I was facing choppers and I'm just now bringing in AA. This is what you get, children, for not looking at what you're fighting before the battle.
Sir, yes, sir.
Do still have a chance, though, because I have the encirclement. So that means they're going to have to come to me to capture any kind of sector that will bring in reinforcements for them. Killing this command chopper is iffy at this range. Probably a situation where I should be moving the Grizzlies forward, because even their stabilization would soon become, or stabilization fire would soon become more accurate than that long distance fire. As choppers move in, I unload the first of my,
Starting to get dangerous here.
gosh, what do you call them? SAM infantry, surface to air missile. I get unlucky and my command unit is caught there in the city before my defenses can position to protect it.
Need a ride?
So I really have to kill that helicopter before it can land and make me look bad.
Trouble.
Those helicopters let themselves get too close. See, these Z5s are pretty good. They're
Visual some hostiles.
a reasonably effective combat unit. So this is the enemy's last hope. It's their only counterattack that's moving forward.
Trouble.
Z5s are pretty cheap. Lucked out, managed to catch all their command units. I think 4 in total, what they started with. Let them fight my Gurkhas there. Luckily, I didn't get destroyed, but if I had avoided battle, they had the chance to send more forces, so I had to take battle there. Didn't want to bother commanding the Gurkhas. They were just too outnumbered to really get a victory. Although I certainly could have avoided a total defeat, probably. Yep, Gurkhas sacrificed themselves so that we could get a potential turn 4 victory. Getting a little extra cohesion for the helicopter. Making sure that they can't support each other. By moving the chopper into each sector, it'll take the peripheral sector that says to the other sector by moving across. Even decided I don't want to see any red naval areas. Only thing left is to reinforce those 2 provinces with planes that can make it. And then we're looking at our last battles. Once again, we've isolated the enemy by either controlling or coming in from those directions. We've cut them off from provinces they could get support from. They must assault and take one of those sectors if they want reinforcements. They will be gaining command points, but they'll need to move a command unit forward in order to bring anything more than their starting points allow. We're back. Pardon the skipping video. Had to cut out a little bit of idle time there from the Twitch video. We didn't miss any attempts on this map. This is first and last attempt. If you've got Royal Marines, your success is pretty well assured. Although these final provinces, they're not meant but in the campaign to be captured. So they actually have pretty strong forces. Not balanced at all for you to fight. The balance of the campaign is to fight on those two front provinces, or potentially be pushed back to the Suan Peninsula and get a less good victory. From my experience, fighting the campaign may actually be easier to go forward than it is to remain static and wait for their assault to hit you. Still placing forces. Even with a good encirclement, unless you've got a great attacking force that can just move in and wipe their force completely and then catch up to any fleeing forces, you'll have at least 3 forces in a triangle surrounding where your enemy is. You're going to have to have exactly 3 forces, 1 to defend each of the sectors I control. And I really need to have a command unit there so that if they stop one there, it's at the very least still contested. As long as I don't use a command unit, this strategy prevents them from bringing in any reinforcements at all. While my infantry can bring in supplies and reinforcements. I may not have to bring supplies since they're driving them right into me though. I have the non-naval tornado present at this battle. This one fires an anti-tank missile. Fortunately, that cargo didn't quite make it, but it wasn't mine to begin with, so nothing ventured, nothing gained is a quote you may be familiar with. I have 2 fighter type units and 1 bomber. Bomber seems to be dropping high explosive rather than heat, but high explosive will still stun and damage vehicles, just not to as high a degree. Generally 2 or 3 of their 10 points of health rather than 6 or more for a good heat bomb. Pretty sure there's plenty of heat bombs that will insta-kill any unit. Yep, at this point, though, not only do we not have the Nighthawk invented yet, I don't think, but the US is not part of this coalition fighting China. It's the Commonwealth only, essentially. But as you can see, still in this period, with just the Commonwealth, plenty of potent weapons. Got the Challenger tanks, they've got top of the line Canadian AA and infantry from Canada, very good in this coalition type deck. This battle's a little less exciting than some we've seen and doesn't require too much commentary from me. Their vehicles are moving from their encircled sectors and trying to gain a foothold, but they're not finding any area that's safe, so their command vehicles are remaining static. However, as I whittle them down, they have no reinforcements, and what was defenders are now becoming attackers, or were defenders. Those who were defenders. Many ways you could probably say that, and none of them I just used were probably correct, so that's impressive. But now, bring in planes, they can get to the battle quickly, strike from the air entry point. I think each of my sectors has one, but I've got at least two. There's at least two on every map. Found my first command vehicle with their final assault, looking to take the two Baoan sector. Once again, fun pronunciations. I'm probably telling all my units to target that command vehicle, and as such they're getting killed by all the non-command vehicles. But either the bomber or that marine, before his final death, does take out the command unit. And I may only have three. There's proof of three. They had all three captured, which requires at least the 3 command units. Generally, a unit will have 4 to 6, so that's how many I'm expecting. I've identified another command unit in that town in Alpha. Meanwhile, Foxtrot's being assaulted from my 2 Shenzhen sector. He's making his move. Now, I don't have a lot of cannon to stop him, so I'm moving what I do have. The Royal Marines get in RPG range. That thing is done for. The ZZZ command vehicle. Given the enemy's lack of AA, I've also decided to start bringing in planes with just machine guns as well as my bombers. Because even fighter planes can eventually whittle down tanks with their machine guns. That takes a long time. Something that I can bring in without impunity. They haven't demonstrated any anti-air capability at all yet. They may not have any present. My HQ section is overrun, which opens up that sector for them, but luckily I already destroyed the command vehicle that was attempting to get there. Here I found another command vehicle, but it's got tanks protecting it, so the recon is unlikely to be able to take him out by himself. A fire position goes in. Will it take out the command vehicle? Doesn't seem like it did. But I know where their last, or their third, potentially last command vehicle is. They could have had 2 command vehicles in one sector. Maybe more. Two tanks and 1 command vehicle being struck by 3 planes and 2 recon vehicles. They're not very heavy though, so if those tanks can identify the recon vehicles, they won't live long. Stunned their command vehicle, but yet those recons paid the price. But before they paid the price, they called in that accurate airstrike, which brought total victory. So mad respect to the recon division. We've taken the airfield, which not just wipes out the troops for that total victory, but every plane stationed there has now bitten the dust. Nowhere to refuel, just had to bail out in the ocean somewhere. They hoped they could survive. Now with air superiority, a total victory over this final province will bring this campaign to a conclusion with yet another victory for me. But they've got a strong force, and all I've got are these choppers. They're not quite all I've got, but that's the main force I'm bringing in right now. Don't have any tanks present. No support at all either.
The sky is ours.
They can only come from one province, one sector over here, so I garrison up one of the towns blocking it, and move helicopters,
It always comes down to
recon,
the
and
infantryman and
vehicles
his
to
blade.
block any other direction they might head. If they get near that town, they'll be facing 4 full territorial squads. Not very expensive infantry, but any infantry in buildings is dangerous. My Foxes are essentially light tank recon. They're really overmatched, but they're just there as cannon fodder while my choppers move into attack position, and once I think they're in range, I'll stop them so that they have maximum accuracy as they fire their rockets and missiles. Here we can see a surprising number of units coming out of this sector. While they're encircled, looks like I've caught another tiger by its tail. A ton of anti-tank,
It always comes down to the
APC,
infantryman and his blade.
and tank vehicles are moving from that sector. But sometimes all you need is one command unit, and then you've got the victory. So they're probably hoping to put up more of a fight than that, but their fight didn't last too long. And with that, I win. No, wait, the Marines. The Marines, do I win? I mean, those Marines are surrounded by a Navy that already beat them. It's the last enemy unit on the map. Do I win on turn 4? I think I do. I think it's a technical knockout, if you're wondering what TKO stands for. But we're going to have to go and fight one last battle, or will we? Auto-resolve destroys him? Come on, if the auto-resolve destroys him, he didn't even count, right? That was a turn 4 victory, not turn 5 victory. Well, you be the judge. Here we are on turn 5. Not one Chinese battle group remains to threaten the Commonwealth forces. I decided to make it extra clear. I'm going to clear these naval sectors, going sub-hunting, making sure there's nothing left. No hidden forces at all. Feeling very saucy after that Marine survived turn 4. I'm one move away from capturing every red sector on the map on turn 5, but on turn 6 there's not even any red left, at least not the territory that I can enter. A couple more end turns and we get to a total victory. Our troops inflicted very heavy casualties to Beijing, who have now no choice but to agree to our conditions. You could not have achieved better results. Well, maybe technically we could have, but I think they're pretty good. I really hope you enjoyed. Kill the music, cut it, cut it. Okay. Really hope everyone enjoyed this particular video here. Took a lot of effort to make this series. Got 2 episodes left. The 2 episodes that are left might be longer than the first 3 episodes, so it's still a lot of work, a lot of enjoyment left for y'all. Everyone have a great day, and thank you all for tuning in and even sticking around to the end. Bye-bye.